Welcome English 102 students. Today we are talking about plagiarism, what it is and how to avoid it. Plagiarism is one of the most frightening things to be accused of when you are a new student. And often most new students don't actually know that they've done it. So luckily, most instructors in the first year are fairly sensitive to students being new and needing some instruction. So most of the time, instructors approach students who have accidentally plagiarized with a lot of support and sympathy. So when we talk about plagiarism, what is it entirely? Well, most of you probably already know that it is when you use someone else's ideas without giving them credit. This includes when you submit a paper to another class and submit it again in a future class. So if you submit a paper twice, you are committing academic misconduct, you're plagiarizing yourself, and you can't actually do that. Who does it hurt? Well, plagiarism, as they like to say in high school, you're only hurting yourself. But by the time you get to college, it gets a lot more complicated because you typically are reading articles by the very academics that are teaching you. If not those academics, then people that are their colleagues. So you are actively undermining and working against the very people that are trying to teach you. So we take it a lot more seriously by the time you get to college. What will happen if you do it? Well, the college has a 3-step process that allows for students to understand their own plagiarism and to correct it. I encourage you to read the process in full in your handbook. Avoiding it. There are 3 basic parts to avoiding plagiarism. First is understanding the difference between general information, paraphrasing, and quoting. You also need to be a conscientious researcher, and then you need to learn to paraphrase correctly. We're going to cover those 3 in the next 12 minutes. First, quoting. Quoting is when you take another words directly from a print source in an academic context, of course. If you're a reporter, you're putting spoken words on the page. At college, typically you're reading an academic article from the databases. You have read something you think is absolutely amazing and needs to be quoted word for word, and then you put quotation marks around it and you put a citation at the end. When you are quoting, it must be taken accurately word for word, and of course it must be cited correctly and APA format. For English 102, we use APA. If you're in English 106, or English 108, you'll be using MLA, which is a slightly different format. Here you have an example of an APA format in-text citation. According to research, open quotation marks, dogs prefer owners who walk them daily, close quotation marks, space, open parentheses, Jones, ampersand, and Cash, comma, the year of the publication, comma, another space, P, a lowercase p, period, space, and the page that you found it on. Close parentheses and a period. It is always those exact punctuation spaced exactly that way. APA is very particular. If you only have one author, then it would just be Jones, comma. Other possibilities are that you do not have page numbers, so you need to use paragraph numbers, in which case you would use para, P-A-R-A, period, and then the number of the paragraph. The difference between summarizing and paraphrasing is also important to know when you don't necessarily want to quote what you've just read, but you want to use someone else's idea. Now, this is where most students get caught up, is that they don't understand the difference between summarizing and paraphrasing. And for APA, APA treats this kind of strangely, because APA is just strange. Basic background information that your reader likely already knows and is not proof for your argument, something like plot summary is not often cited. If you're paraphrasing a whole bunch of ideas, though, that's a little bit different. The example I have on the screen, the girl walked into the room with a bag of groceries in her arms that she had just purchased at Walmart. If I'm just reporting what's happening, I don't need to put a citation beside that because that's not necessarily a unique idea. It's a little bit of context. So this statement is fine as long as it's setting up a quote or a paraphrase, and a statement like that typically is in a paper. If you decide that you're going to summarize several pages of ideas in one sentence, like if you take half a chapter where somebody talks about or explains how babies are made, right? Anderson explains how babies are made, 2002. You're going to need to put a cite in it, and you won't put the page or paragraph number on. Where many students get caught up or confused is when to simply give the author and the year, and when to include a page number. Now, you include a page number when you are paraphrasing a specific idea from a specific page. So if you're reading along and you're like, oh, wow, that's a great idea, I'm going to summarize that idea. Or summarize it. Summarizing and paraphrasing are fairly similar concepts. However, paraphrasing is relating to a very specific idea. So I hope I'm making that clear. So in this example I have on the screen, this person has read an article, Anderson, and Anderson talked about how sync purchases are used to gain social credit for conscious choices, and then that purchase is used over and over and over again. But the person only made the purchase once. So because this person read this on one specific page and they have then condensed it and put it in their own words, they've completely changed the wording on the original and they put it in their own words, they need to use the year as well as the page number. Because you can find the idea on one specific page, you need to give that specific page. If you're talking about broad or general ideas from half of a chapter or from an entire book that you've just summarized in one sentence, that's when you don't use a page or a paragraph number. The APA format rules are different for summary, paraphrasing, and quoting. Summary is when you don't use the page number. The in-text citation for summary, usually several pages or paragraphs in one sentence, looks as is highlighted there on the screen. This is really common for descriptive scientific papers that are not using sources for proof, but your reader still needs to know where you read that information. So it's far more common in the sciences to use that type of in-text citation. However, most of the time when you're doing specific research for a specific topic, you are getting an idea from a specific page. So it is a very good habit to get into to always give the page number. Whether you're quoting or whether you have taken that quote and put it into your own words to make a paraphrase. The in-text citation for a quote taken word for word looks the same as paraphrase. In your textbook, in the article Social Network Sites and Wellbeing, there are several examples. Take a look and find an example of a quote and find an example of a summary cite. The next part is conscientious research. You need to make sure you're taking meticulous notes or downloading and saving all of the articles from the databases that you are going to or intend to use in your paper. Never copy and paste from the internet or from Google Sites, and avoid them entirely if you can. It is also way too easy to plagiarize when you're looking directly at the passage you're trying to paraphrase. So use the BARF method. The BARF method is a process of digesting what you've read before you create a paraphrase. I created this method several years ago with a group of nursing students, and I hope you find it memorable. So what you have to imagine is that the article passage that you want to paraphrase is sitting in front of you, much like a peanut butter and banana sandwich. So you have the article open, you've just read something that you think is amazing, but it's too awkward to quote, so you're going to paraphrase. So you read the passage. You eat the peanut butter and banana sandwich. You chew it up and you swallow. Then you're going to close the book or flip the article over or close the screen, and you're going to think about it. You're going to digest the peanut butter and banana sandwich. Then, before you go back and look, you're going to write a paraphrase. You're going to put what you've just read completely into your own words. Putting it completely into your own words is regurgitating it. So you're going to bring up that peanut butter and banana sandwich. Now, the trick here is to write a paraphrase that is smooth. To bring up a peanut butter and banana sandwich that is free of chunks. You don't want chunks of original phrases left. You don't want to be able to identify chunks of bread or chunks of banana. You want it to be completely smooth vomit. So it's still technically a peanut butter and banana sandwich when it's very, very smooth like that. But there's no chunks that really stick out as being somebody else's words. Let's take a look at some examples here. In the original source material here at the top, we can see part of an article from the Farm News Bulletin. Below is a paraphrase. Take a moment, pause the recording, and consider whether or not this is good paraphrase. Okay, this is chunky paraphrase. In fact, you can see the chunks, deep chasms, big old chunk of banana, drink of rain, same phrases, same terminology, and there's no citation. So this would be considered plagiarized. In this original source material, hit pause and compare. Is it plagiarized? Is it okay? Well, this too is plagiarized. It's almost word for word. You can put quotation marks around it to fix it and add a citation, or you can do a better paraphrase. In this next example, this person has decided to quote and not paraphrase, but this is a really good quote. This particular quote is using an MLA style, not an APA style. So there is an issue there, but other than that, it's perfectly fine. Oklahoma farmers are worried that they will not be able to feed their animals during the winter because the absence of rain the past 6 weeks has caused billions of dollars in crop loss. Is that plagiarized or is it okay? This is a great paraphrase. It's fairly smooth and doesn't really have any chunky bits. Things like numbers, billions of dollars, 6 weeks, those aren't worth changing. Because if you changed them, then you might actually alter the meaning. It would sound kind of silly to say millions and millions or a month and a half. In this last example, pause a moment and consider it. Okay, in this last example, we have a very chunky paraphrase. This is somebody who has left the book open and possibly has a thesaurus and is just finding new words for things. You want to avoid that strategy. Although that strategy is taught in high school, it's not really appropriate for college. Make sure you chew up the sandwich and regurgitate it smooth, making sure you're not looking at the book. This will ensure you use your own words. This particular one is also using the wrong name in the citation, so it is incorrect. What I mean by this is still chunky, just to make it clear, is They have taken the entire state and all of Oklahoma, month and a half for 6 weeks.